welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today we're going to be doing a take one stamp video where we're going to use this frame stamp in lots of different ways, and we'll be using some of the other stamps with it, but this will be the one that we use on every card. So this is part of the free gift that comes with this month's Creative Stamping magazine. So you get this smaller stamp set and this huge stamp set. So it's actually a really big gift for a magazine. So we've got these big poinsettia and the smaller one, loads of kind of stars and snowflakes, some cute little deer, like all sorts of kind of Christmassy things, some nice sentiments. You've got loads of things on there. You've even got some kind of Christmas postage bits. So it's a really fun set. So let's get on and make some cards. So for this first card, I want to make the frame kind of the star of the show. So I'm going to heat emboss it onto this kind of purpley cardstock. And I'm using the lid of my stamp tool just as a big block because I want to move it round a bit, but you need quite a big block for this stamp, so I'm using that. So I'm going to heat emboss that in gold. So then I'm going to cut this out. And then I'm going to cut through the inside of the frame as well. I like to roughly cut a piece out first and then go round and neaten it up, because then you've got more room for your scissors to move. And I actually find it easier to come through from the back like this. Can you see how my scissors are actually behind the frame and only the front blade is coming above it? Everyone's going to have their different ways, but I find that that is easier for me because then my hands aren't getting in the way of the cutting. So that will go on there like that. So then I want to take that Merry Christmas that's in the middle of there, and I'm going to heat emboss that in the centre of there. And again I'm going to do that in gold. And then I'm going to place my frame back over there, and then I'm going to just lightly draw around it. So then I'm going to heat emboss using this onto here. I'm going to heat emboss like the corners and the sides, but I don't want it to come over this line. So I'm going to make sure it stays outside of that line. So then I'm going to heat emboss that in gold as well. So then I can erase my pencil mark. And then I'm going to add some foam pads to the back of this. And then I'm going to pop that onto there. And then we've got this gorgeous kind of colourful gilded card. So then for my next card, I'm going to do some ink blending. So on the front of the card, I'm going to do some Kitsch Flamingo at the top. And I'm going to take that down into some shaded lilac at the bottom. So then I'm going to ink up my stamp with Stays On ink. I want a really nice crisp black outline. It's harder to get that really crisp black look on top of Distress Oxide inks. So that's why I'm using the Stays On, to get as dark a look as possible. So then I'm going to open up the card and I'm going to put some peacock feathers in the middle. I'm actually just going to grab a piece of paper so that I can do along this edge and not worry about it. I'd only intended to actually do the middle. I wasn't going to do the whole thing, but I think I am now going to do the whole thing. So I'm going to bring in my sticky mat. And then I'm going to add some salvage patina in the centre just to lighten up that centre a bit. So now I'm going to cut out the inside of this frame. So then I'm going to add my card into my stamp positioning tool. I'm going to add the magnets, but I'm going to add them inside. And then I want to place this deer stamp so it sits just inside that aperture. And then I'm going to flip that open. I'm going to use the Stays On ink to stamp it inside the card. So then I'm just going to pick out some of these elements on the frame to colour. I'm doing that using my Carin markers, which are water based. So then I'm going to stamp this Season's Greeting sentiment onto this cardstock, which kind of coordinates with that colour that we've used in the centre. So I'm going to cut around there. Then I'm going to add some foam pads behind it. And then that's that card finished. So then for my next card, I want to do some heat emboss resist. So I've got my frame on like this, and you'll notice it's hanging off here. The reason I've done this is because this is a block that's easy to kind of move around, like easy to fit in my hand, which the next biggest block I've got is really big, so it wouldn't be as easy to manoeuvre. I just want to use the corners on this, so I've placed it so that these corners are easy to use. And I'm just going to kind of create a border around my circle. We're going to be making a circle card. So I'm just kind of going to stamp it round like this. And I'm going to alternate the corners. And you can do this with either clear or white embossing powder. You can see that I've still got a teeny bit of black on my stamp. I tried to clear it off, but I obviously didn't do a good enough job. So I'm going to go with white embossing powder to kind of cover that up. But you could also use clear and then the white will show through. So then I'm going to add on some of the Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink, and that will really help those corners to show up. I'm going to cover up the centre part, so I don't need to worry about that too much. And then you can just take off the excess with a cloth. I'm actually using a water wipe here and try not to touch too much of the ink blending, but just know that if you do use a water wipe, wherever that you do touch the ink blending, it is going to lift the ink there as well. So it lifts more of the ink off of the white than normal, but also you run the risk of lifting up the actual ink that you want to stay there as well. So then I've cut these two circles, one out of the darker purpley pink, one out of the lighter one, and I just want to heat emboss this sentiment onto this lighter cardstock. So I'm going to pop that on there, and I heat emboss that in the white to go with the other heat embossing we've got going on. And then I'm going to pop this up on some foam. Then I'm going to add that onto here. And then I've just stamped and coloured this poinsettia, which I'm going to use to just decorate that down there. I'm going to pop that on some foam pads as well. So then I've got another white circle that's going to be the back of my card. I'm just lining, I've cut And then I've cut a small strip off the one side so that it doesn't rock and roll. That's going to be the bottom of the card. And then I'm going to just score it at 4¼ inches here. Then I'm going to add some glue above that score line. Then I'm just going to add my card to the front of there. And then there's our finished card. So then for this next card, I kind of want to stretch our frame. So I have stamped and coloured this poinsettia, the 3 poinsettia. Then I've also stamped and coloured this frame, and I want to add it so that I can cut it apart and pop it on here, but I want to hide the gaps behind this floral. So if I held that there and then put this across like this, and I can see that I can cut this along there, and then I can also cut it here. So let's glue this to my card front. So this is a 5-inch square card front, and I'm just going to glue that on here. So then I can lay this on again so that I know where it's going to go, and then I can do this bottom corner. So I'm going to cut this one just here, and then I'm going to glue this on in this corner. So then this one I'm going to cut through here, and I'm going to glue this on down here, and then I'll glue this one in the top corner. Then where we have a couple of little gaps, we're just going to fill those in. So I'm just going to grab the smaller poinsettia, and I'll stamp that on here, and then I'm going to colour the leaves with my Olo marker. And these ones are going to be in the background, so I'm not worrying about shading or anything. I'm just going to do some flat colouring. And then I'm just going to cut these out. So I'm going to cut them along this line here, and then I'll add a small white border around the outside so that they match in with the other ones. And then they will just kind of fill those extra spaces. So then I'm going to glue those extra leaves in place. So then I'm just going to pop this up on here. And we're going to use this with Love at Christmas sentiment. I'm going to heat emboss that onto that green cardstock, and do that in white embossing powder. I'm just cutting around the sentiment. And then I'm just going to pop that up on some foam dots. And then that's that card finished. Then for my final card, I'm just going to heat emboss just the side of this stamp in rows onto my cardstock. So I have this tool on my stamp positioning tool that does make this easier, so I'm going to use that, but you can obviously just eye it up and stamp. I'm not sure that this stamp positioning tool is still available, but if it is, I'll link it below. I know quite a few of you picked it up when I did a video on it a couple of months back, so some of you might actually have it in your stash. And so I'm going to cut this down, and it's going to look a hot mess at first, but I'm going to cut it down, and then hopefully it'll be easier to see where I'm going with it. So I'm going to heat emboss that in gold. So you can see I've cut this into a panel where I've just cut off the stripes, I've cut the edges off. Then I've got this piece of purple cardstock that is 1/8 of an inch wider, and then I've got a 4¼ by 5½ inch green card length. So then this one, I just cut off the end stripe, and then I've got that ready to layer because we're going to make an easel card. So before I create my easel card, I'm just going to create some more embellishment. So I've got some more of that purpley cardstock, and I heat embossed the Joy to the World and also a few of the stars in gold. So then I've cut out my stars and just cut that sentiment to the same width as this purple cardstock. So then I'm just going to score the front of my card at 2 3/4 inches, and then I can bend that to create an easel card. And then I'm going to glue together these pieces, and I'll glue these ones together too. And then I want to glue this on, but only to the bottom part of my card, so I'm just going to glue across here. Now I'm going to add this on to that bottom bit, so then that will pop up like that when it's the easel bit. So then I'm going to glue this piece on, which is kind of technically to the inside. And then I'm going to add my Joy to the World on foam pads and put that on there. And then I'm going to decorate it with stars. So then the front of the card will look like that, and you can bend that up so that it looks like that. So then there we've got all 5 of today's cards. I'd love to know which is your favourite. Please do let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below. You can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that helps you find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.